Welcome to a new Anno 1800 episode. Today we're covering perfect stamps and layout, as well as items for the cigar production. And of course everything linked to it, like tobacco, wood veneers, wood, and while we're at it, we're also gonna look at timber. Don't hesitate to check in the video description below if you want to see the full playlist, because we've already covered quite a few other productions. Also, if you want to join my Discord community to find all of those stamps for free, you can find the link in the video description below. Okay, as always, let's start with the basic production. No trade union or anything like this. This is the minimum production for cigars. We have the cigar factory in the middle, right, and everything around. We have, of course, a warehouse, police station, and fire station. But more importantly, next to the cigar factory, you have two marquetry workshops to make wood veneers. Then these wood veneers will require some wood. That is why we have the lumberjack hut over here. And then last but not least, if we look over here, we also need some tobacco. These tobacco farms are over there. We have 4 of them because it's a 2-minute cycle. It's a very long, slow production, and it also requires a lot of fields, 192 without tractors. So that is why this is taking a bit of space. But with this, you're producing 2 cigars per minute, which is actually quite a lot. Your people won't need that much with the perfect production ratio for wood veneers and tobacco. And you're overproducing a bit of wood, so you can decrease the working condition on the wood, or you can use it for something else. But yeah, that's your basic production as always to get started. Now let's move into trade unions. And if you've been following this series, you know that I like to start with a trade union that I call mixed trade union. A trade union in which you put everything that's needed, in the trade union. In this case over here, we have everything except, the lumberjack hut. They are not in the range of the trade union because they do need quite a lot of space, but they are in the stamp, right? So with this stamp, we'll be producing everything. We'll be producing the cigars, the wood veneers, the tobacco, and the wood. Of course, right now you can see that it's not a perfect equilibrium on all of the productions because you're gonna put items into this trade union and that's gonna change things, right? After you've put the items, also you may want, to change a few things. For example, I don't know, pause or delete one of those marquetry. If you're making too much wood veneers, maybe you add one more of these tobacco farms at the bottom over here or somewhere else to make the equilibrium. But yeah, you have everything over here. We have, of course, some warehouse on the corners. We have police station, fire station, and we have all 4 buildings, as I said, 8 of those cigar factories, 4 here and 4 there. We have even more of those marquetry workshop because they have a 1-minute production cycle. Then we have the lumberjack huts on the corners over here because remember, they do need a lot of space for their trees. And then you have a number of tobacco farms with the tractors and silos because their production is so slow. If you don't want to have too many of them, you're gonna need to boost them. Don't hesitate to tell me if you have any question about this one. But yeah, this is a mixed trade union. If you don't have a lot of influence, this is perfect. Now let's move into dedicated trade unions. First of all, the trade union for the cigar factories. We're fitting 15 into this one because this is quite a big building. But yeah, you have everything as always into the range. All of them are into the range. You have your warehouses, police station, fire station, all of it is in there. A simple but efficient one. And next to it, you'll probably need a trade union for your marquetry. Unless you have maybe some items, we'll talk about that in, just a few minutes. But this one is for the marquetry, taking also quite a bit of space. It's a bit of a different layout, as you can see. But yeah, all the buildings have access to a road. They're all in range of the trade union. We have warehouse, police station, fire station, and how much are we producing? Well, funnily enough, with this one, it is actually the perfect ratio of the other trade union, it's 30 to 30. So even if you don't have items, this is working. If you add items, of course, that's gonna increase for both. Now that's good, but of course, you're gonna need a lot of tobacco. And remember that tobacco, it's a 2-minute production. So indeed, having a trade union that optimizes like this, where we have quite a lot, we have 40 tobacco plantation into this one. This is pretty good. This will help for sure. If you put a few items, you increase the working condition, you can get to a fairly high production. Not a huge one. We're not talking about 200 per minute, right? Because this one is only 20 right now, but you could get, to 50 or something like this, no problem. And that's not all. You can get better, of course, because you can add the silos and the tractors as always. This is actually a very similar setup than the coffee one I showed you in the previous episode, because we have over here 28 plantations, but without items or anything, it's already almost 100. So you can definitely go above the 100 with this one. It's a slightly more complex layout, as you can see, but again, you can find the stamp on my Discord community and you don't have to reinvent it. Now for the marquetry, we're gonna need some wood, and also, you know, you may need wood, right? This is quite a good resource to have. So here it is. You may have seen it also in the old world. It's a pretty similar one. You can do it in the new world like this. We have different entrances to put, you know, your fire stations, police station, things like this, or your warehouses. This way we're limiting the number of roads. Of course, if you want, you can connect like this, but again, that will decrease your number of trees, so that's not as good. This will not work at 100% if you don't have any items, but that's why they're the trade union, right? Remember, you put some good items into it. Actually, let me show you right away. I'm talking about items like the Tectonic Technical Secateurs, because this is going to increase your forest density. For example, this one by 30%, this one by 20. And that means with this, you will not need a lot of trees. And therefore with this, you'll get to a 100% productivity, even if you have a lot of small spaces. Now, while we're here, let's look at a few other items before we look into the last stamp. So first of all, for the cigar factory. I mean, of course, for the cigar factory, as always, if you don't have electricity, you may want to put Angela to get electricity and get a 100% boost, but there are also some other items that are really good. If you don't have a lot of obreros, for example, you may want to put Victor, because basically instead of using obreros as workforce, it's gonna use the jornaleros. You may also want to try to get to a 0 workforce. You know, this is minus 20. You have, for example, the extremely loud bell at minus 50, but you also have this one over here that you may not have seen before, the lovely man's grinding machine, which is productivity plus 40 and workforce need minus 50. That's a really good one. Last but not least, my favorite is actually Torcedor Lucia. She's going to increase your productivity by 40%. That's already pretty good. But most importantly, she's going to change the input from wood veneers to timber. Remember, the wood veneers were not so easy to make. You need the wood and the marquetries, which was 1 minute production cycle, quite a few workforce. Now timber, that's a lot easier. You're probably already making a lot of timber anyway, because you need timber for everything, right? So with this, now you're using timber. And that is why the last stamp for today will be this timber production that you can use if you have this item that I just showed you, or also just for a big production of timber. Look at how many we can fit into this trade union. This is huge. Without any working conditions or items, we're already talking of more than 200 of timber per minute, because we have almost 60 sawmill. This is huge. You'll probably never need this, but yeah, this is there. If you need it, I made it for you. Now, on the other hand, if you don't have that item, you're gonna need probably item for your marquetry workshop, and there's actually quite a few that are really good. First of all, don't use Angela. Instead, use Seraphine, because it will also give you electricity, but it's also going to increase the productivity and give you wood veneers 1 out of 3. So you can decrease, you know, the number of wood veneers that you have by a third. By the way, this one works on all carpentry work. So if you want, you can also put it on the one we just looked at to make timber. Then we have the classic ones like the extremely loud bell of Ferras as always. But again, there's also a few others like this one over here. Productivity plus 50%, workforce needed minus 25. That's not so bad. But my favorite is actually a rare one, the cabinet maker, because productivity plus 30, but the workforce is minus 60. So with this, you can get to 0 workforce without any problem. By the way, if you're a bit short on wood, you can also use the carpenter over here, because it's gonna give you wood 1 out of 3, meaning it's again reducing sort of the input or the wood needed by a third. Don't hesitate to tell me in the comments below if there are other items you really like for this production, but for me, these are my go-to. Now for the tobacco plantation, this is pretty similar to the sugar cane. Meaning, first of all, you probably want to get to 0 workforce using either the miraculous steel plow or the patent steel seed drill, especially if you already have, you know, the tractor, you only need one of these. And then you have a couple of items that are not going to change completely the productivity, but may give you a lot of other production. For example, we have Dr. Ali, right? Productivity plus 30, but more importantly, it will give you red pepper, potatoes, grape, grains, and hop. It's not huge, you know, it's not even 10% of your current production, but it's free, so why not? Similarly, we have Mrs. Brown, right? Plus 20% for the productivity, and in this case, it's cacao, caoutchouc, and cotton. Again, pretty useful. I did want to remind you that actually tobacco, you may not even want to have tobacco plantation because you could have the arborist item that you see on the screen over here. It's a really good item I've mentioned already a couple of times. For example, for your coffee plantation, for your plantain, and we'll also mention it for the cacao and the caoutchouc. This will give you tobacco 1 out of 5, and you're definitely gonna make a lot more coffee than what you need in terms of cigars. So this again could be enough tobacco for everything that you need. So it is, ladies and gentlemen, 8 perfect stamps and layout for your cigar production, including for wood and timber. Don't hesitate to tell me in the comments below if you have any requests, any other layouts that you've seen, that you've been using. I'd love to hear, and I hope to see you next time.